Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We have some things to discuss. More COVID in Ottawa, 10 games in the NHL, or a lot of games in the NHL last night. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
All right. So with the impending CBA trouble with Major League Baseball on the horizon, it looks like the winter meetings are going to be canceled. But the GM meeting went on. And so, of course, Scott Boras was there shooting his mouth off because that's his one opportunity to do it. But I want to say the biggest lie, like, how there's the big lie, and we talk about it in politics, right? The big lie in baseball is when someone like Sandy Alderson says the luxury tax is not going to be an impediment for us to pick up players this year. Well, yes, it is. It's been an impediment. It's been an impediment for the Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies. All these teams made net sum trades. They added some money. All of them stopped completely short of the luxury tax. There was a couple teams over, about the Red Sox and the
Dodgers. Yeah.
Just the Dodgers. And so, but again, they keep perpetuating the lie as if fans should believe them that, oh yeah, this is the year we're just going to spend.
Well, it's not a lie in the sense that the Yankees got under the luxury tax, didn't break it last year. They reset. So now they're going to do what they did in 2009, and they're going to go spend like drunken sailors. Now it's better. It's that's good in this respect. If they spend it wisely and spend it on players who are good long term, then that's great. And if they're stupid and they spend it on AJ Burnett of 2021, then it's not good. So
95% of the league stopped short of the luxury tax.
Oh yeah,
and yet some of the big markets still perpetuate that, and it's just maddening. I mean,
it's supposed to be a soft cap, and it's a hard cap, really.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it isn't. It's not really a hard cap, but the teams treat it like that. They don't want to
like a hard cap.
It's so punitive, even for the teams with a lot of money. They you just don't want to pay that amount of money. So.
Well, here it is. I think it's the teams with a lot of money don't want to pay the bottom feeding teams that don't have a cap floor that extra money. That's what I think it really boils down to, Kev. Now, if they do make a cap floor in the new CBA, that could cure that problem.
Yeah, but the problem is that the rumored if that happens with a cap floor, there will be a cap ceiling that'll be lower. They're saying like 100 million for a cap floor, 180 million for a cap ceiling, and if you go over the cap ceiling, it's dollar for dollar. In terms of like any amount over it. So the Yankees are not going to spend $50 million to spend $25 million in extra salary.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the ridiculousness of $100 million being a cap floor in baseball. Like, if you can't spend $100 million in baseball, you shouldn't be in baseball.
Yeah, but
not either.
What's going to happen, Kev. If they do a new CBA with a cap floor like that, all of a sudden you're going to see the big market teams like the Dodgers and the Red Sox and maybe to a lesser extent the Yankees trade off players with salary to Pittsburgh and Kansas City because they have to reach the cap floor.
Yeah, no, but if that would help those smaller markets to be sure. I mean, look at, like, we always talk about, and it's true, I think, in the NHL that the salary cap does help the smaller market teams. But it really hasn't helped in baseball. Pittsburgh has still been, they've been bad for a long time. It seems almost hopeless there.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that's sort of hilarious. I've seen two rumors over the last 48 hours regarding players that are successful on teams that are like Pittsburgh and Oakland that are not making big money. Matt Olson from the A's, Brian Reynolds from the Pirates. Both of them are rumored to be traded. I know the Yankees are supposedly in on both of them, and they're not making big money for another 2 or 3 years. But these teams are trading them proactively because they don't even want to have to pay the money that they get in arbitration. So it's not like small market teams in the NHL trading a guy a year before free agency. These teams are trading these guys 2 or 3 years before because they don't want to even walk up to the money that they would be. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that is. Yeah, I have such a conflict with because my instincts are always, there should be no artificial governor on player salaries. Like, you should be able to get what you can get. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. They're the talent and all that. On the other hand, I do see the benefit of a salary cap in terms of the competitiveness of the league. You have an opportunity. We forget that. I remember this specifically. The Red Wings, prior to the salary cap, had an $80 million payroll, and the Penguins had a $23 million payroll. So there was such a disparity that it made the competition, difficult. And we still see that, now with the Pirates versus the Yankees, or Pirates versus the, So it's a difficult issue. I did want to bring up one thing about when you brought up the winter meetings that, every once in a while you say things, but you sort of forget what else is going on. Like I say all the time, and I believe this, that the trade deadline in hockey is the best trade deadline day. There's no doubt about it, because there's so many things happen and teams change and all that.
I believe in that.
However, the winter meetings, the winter meetings rival that in terms of interest. Like, I am always fired up about the winter meetings, because a lot of teams are going to change players, and we used to have trades. We have fewer trades now. It's more just selling off a player and getting prospects and that. But in the old days, we used to get a lot of player for player, and you were always excited about what your team was going to do.
True. All right.
So I mean, I just saw yesterday on MSN, there was a headline that said Detroit Tigers interested in Eduardo Rodriguez, and I was fired up.
Yeah.
But
as a kid, I saw the Daily News say the Mets are trying to get Rod Carew, and I was fired up until I realized it was total baloney.
Yeah.
Well, there's less baloney now, because people do, find out. So it's, most of the rumors there's something to them, but there's a big difference, as Eck will tell you, big difference between making a few calls and, being in serious negotiations for a player.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, let's get going here. Do I sound okay? I'm using a different microphone.
You sound like you're in an echo chamber, or not.
Yeah.
You're a little distant. Is more.
Really? Hold on one second. Give me 1 second.
We can
It's
survive.
legible. It's fine.
Yeah, but
Just
just
tell me if this is this better? Is that better?
It's worse than your usual one.
No, it is better than the one I just had.
It sounds like you're at Cape Canaveral, and we're up in the we're up in the rocket listening to.
How about now? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's
good.
better.
That's better. Yeah. Okay. All right. I was trying to use these to see if I can get better sound, but that's not gonna work. All right, here we go.
That works.
This works now. Yeah, this is.
This you're much better.
I thought it was, sounding kind of lousy. Anyway, let's do it. Anyway, here we
go.
I
like the Margate. Margate is 2 words. So.
No, it isn't. It's just
what the zipper is.
Zippy. I know. No, this is like the family Margate sweatshirt. Everybody in this family wears it at some point during the week. It's hilarious. It just lies around. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, November 12th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and Eck, go for the moon.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Uh-oh, Kev's frozen.
And that's Kevin, who froze for a second for us.
You froze, Kev.
Yeah.
That's okay. You're
back.
You're back.
You look like you were just dumbfounded by us introducing ourselves.
It did.
Yeah. Okay, let's introduce, and then I'm going to reboot. So,
all right, that's Kevin Allen, and I'm Macklin. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Go ahead and reboot Kevin.
Yeah, whatever. I'm going to do that. All right. Sorry, guys.
You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast, and if you're having a good day and you came and joined us, that we hope to make that day an escape for you for a while. And we never know if that's going to be the case, but we're going to try. We're going to try to be escape, but we're doing it a little early today because that's where we are. And I don't know what was wrong with my microphone. But anyway, we're good. We're good now. Everything's fine now. And I think I wanted to start today because there's some like crazy stuff to get into. But I think we have to start with Zach in Washington, Russ, because that was such a great
Zach
story.
Fucale, yeah.
Zach Fucale, who was drafted, 8 years ago, gets his first NHL game, and that's just amazing. Like, we think about what the guy's been through and stuff like that, and gets a shutout. In his first game. It's just
first shutout. It's incredible. He was a highly touted prospect. Like, even though he's a second rounder, he also played for the World Junior team. He was really had a lot of potential. We all knew about him. He played in Halifax. He was great there. Just things happened to him along the way, and I don't think it was injuries. I think it's just places in opportunity. When he played in the ECHL, he was probably better than that, but they had too many goalies at times. And 26 is not the oldest to break in. I mean, we've talked about it a lot of times. It could take till 25, but you have to give him credit because he's kicked around and he stayed with it because it's his dream. And I loved the way the Capitals gave him a suds bath of beer, it looked like, after the game. It was fantastic the way they did it. It was a really feel-good story.
Yeah, well, it's in a way, it's similar to the sort of Jack Campbell story, because if you remember, Campbell gets drafted high by the Dallas Stars, and he sort of goes AHL, ECHL back and forth over 2 or 3 years, and doesn't really get an opportunity until he goes to Los Angeles. Here, Fucale he was the heir apparent when he was drafted. They thought, okay, this guy is going to be the backup at the NHL level in a couple of years and back up Carey Price, and maybe, when Carey Price gets old, this is the guy who will take over. And he didn't do great in 2 years with St. John's, went down to the Brampton Beast. Then he was basically all over the place, AHL, ECHL, and started off the year really well this year with Hershey and gets an opportunity. And it's a great story. So, I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and Caps stand to have this is another addition to their depth goaltending. They've got a lot there. They've got 3 goalies really, and
you could throw in a guy like that. And look, I get what Funky says. Maybe he wasn't tested as much but whatever. It's still his first NHL game to get a shutout. It's pretty cool.
Well, David Ayres wasn't tested, if you remember. So there you go.
Yeah. And when we were doing our predictions, I remember Russ saying that he thought the Capitals' defense was a little better than we were giving it credit for. And, I watched them live yesterday, and, with an opportunity to help a NHL rookie get a shutout in his first game, they just tightened up, and they were hard to play against. They were Calgary Flames hard to play against. Wow. They were Tampa Bay Lightning hard to play against.
And I just felt like because of Martin Fehervary coming of age, that they were a lot better defensively. Like, that really helped them. Because, again, I looked at it, and if they were sending, Kempney down, who had was coming back from an Achilles, then that convinced me that they felt like it was better than it should be. Because Kempney will be back at some point this year when there's an injury. So that's a hell of a guy to have just sitting in Hershey too.
Yeah, I think the Red Wings only had like 10 or 11 shots in the final 2 periods. They were just really limiting him. But the rookie was tested in the first period for sure. Yeah,
they really did clamp down though, Kevin. I agree. We're seeing a lot of interesting things. I wanted to bring up some interesting things before we get to the COVID thing in Ottawa, which I know we have to. But here's what watching last night. There's some new players that we talked about, and younger players coming, but there's just some players that are making differences. Like right now, the thing that's amazing me is the play of Matt Duchene in Nashville. It's astonishing. Like it's an absolute, complete, and utter turnaround. And the Predators are they're in this thing because, like we always said, if Duchene and Johansson play well, the Predators are a different team. They have. It changes if those guys are playing up to what they should be.
Well, Duchene's speed never went away, so I guess whatever it was,
his effort is totally different. It's just
but the speed's always going to be there. So that's where I saw the goal. It was a great goal in overtime. Maybe he just suffered confidence and whatever for the last few years, but listen, man, he still has talent.
Well, I'll say this with a hint of sarcasm. If I was David Poile, I'd trade him right now, because if he's at a high value, you might be able to actually get something for him. But yeah, I mean, yes, he's an extremely talented player.
He's got 8 goals. I mean, like that's
right. He's an extremely talented player. He was talented in Colorado. He was talented in Ottawa. They signed him to a big contract, and up until this point, he's been really disappointing in Nashville. But this is what I think what they expected of him, Kev. And I'm sort of saying it tongue in cheek, but honestly, if your intent, if David Poyle's intent with Nashville is to sort of reset, the only way they can reset is by moving one or both of Johansson and Duchesne, and that seemed impossible at the beginning of the year because they've underachieved for so long. But maybe it's possible if he puts it together a good year. Maybe there will be somebody who's interested in him.
Yeah, I think it even went beyond being disappointed. Like I think he crushed the soul of the Predators by last season in terms of he was just so non-existent. And Ryan Johansson was a little better, but not much. He was so in and out, and at least when he's not scoring, he can win you a face-off and that sort of thing. What's fascinating to me is I don't think David Poyle really wants to believe that he has to rebuild.
Right.
Yeah.
I just have that sense. He's not a strip it down to the chassis, start over kind of guy.
Yeah,
and particularly now that he's been in the league 40 some years. I think this just kind of feeds into his idea. Like at the end of last season, he was kind of saying, we thought we were a little better than we actually feel. And now I think that this just, kind of fuels that because they have been better than anybody thought. Not a lot better, but a little better.
Yeah.
Enough to be competitive.
For sure.
So, now you're trying to convince yourself, well, with the Blackhawks being less than people thought they were, who knows? Maybe we could make some hay. So,
and the Stars struggling, and there's different things there too, there's a lot of people that think the Stars are going to see a coaching change soon. I've heard that, recently.
Well, they got to get some goals, and what people don't talk about enough is Jamie Benn's absence. He's playing, but he's not the Jamie Benn, that we saw, several years ago. And as I wrote in my notebook yesterday, you're not making the playoffs if you're scoring 2.18 goals per game.
Right.
You're just not going to, unless your goaltending is really unbelievable. So, and another team that, we probably should be talking about, and I don't understand, to me, they're doing it with mirrors. Although Terry has a lot to do with is Anaheim. Look at their record now.
I know. And it's not just their record, it's that they are like third in power play, second in penalty killing. They're just doing everything right. And the crazy thing is, it's just that they are, and they're goaltending. Obviously, they're getting the goaltending right now. I think it's hard to argue that they might have this end of the USA starting goalie on their team right now. It seems like that's where it's heading.
That's always a possibility for sure.
But haven't you always felt? It's like one of those things. I always say that. When I write my book about being a sports writer for hundreds of years, like I have been, that one chapter we dedicated on the idea that luck plays such an incredible role in this. And I've always kind of felt special teams where there was more luck involved than anything else. I mean, it's just, teams are good one year and bad the next. And, there's always some surprising teams that are good on the power play. But, there are some teams that, like you expect Washington to be good on the power play, and they usually are because they got Ovechkin. By the way, that statistic that I did on the percentage of power play.
Explain that. That was great.
Well, I'm curious to know. Hopefully, Mike and Russ haven't read it, so they can guess. Because I was actually surprised by the number. What would you guess the percentage of Ovechkin's goals are that he gets on the power play in his career?
In his career. I'm going to go 30.
30%?
Yep.
No, I'd say 10.
36.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a great guess, Russ, because I would have guessed 20.
Well, I see with the way they set him up on the power play, and I know he's got the hammer of a shot, and he takes most of the shots. That's the only reason I went that way.
What percentage of them have been from that spot, Kevin?
I would love to know that. It's so funny because Dave Andrechuk, I ended up writing a column on this too, but Dave Andrechuk did a Zoom with reporters, and I was surprised. There were like 25 or 30 reporters on this Zoom call. That wanted to hear his take on Ovechkin. Ovechkin's going to pass him. And, he kind of joked around about how they were completely different. And I wanted to say, you think?
Yeah. Andrechuk's goals on the power play were scored within 5 feet of the goal.
He said 6. So you're right on. He said about 6
feet. You know what it is, though? I'll tell you what it is with Ovechkin and that spot. There's very few players that can do one thing from the one spot and get away with it, but it's kind of like when that major league pitcher has just a fastball nobody can hit, and he says, "This is what I'm throwing, hit it." And Ovechkin's basically saying the same thing. You know what I'm going to do? Let's see you stop it. And most times they can't.
That's really kind of what Nedeljkovic, Detroit. He had had seen him last year, and of course he. The Red Wings faced him earlier this year, and that's essentially what he said. We all know where he's going to be. We all know how hard he's going to shoot it.
Yeah.
We just can't stop it. And Fleury told me that same thing 7 or 8 years ago.
So what you don't know when that was that is, and if you look at this, and I asked the goalie this one time too, and Marty Biron actually, we're talking to Marty Biron about it, and he said, although you know what he's going to do, you know that he's going to shoot it. I mean, he's going to get that. He does a really good job at mixing up where he's putting it. Like he does put it, he takes that one timer. It's not always long side. It's not always short side. It's not always high. It's not always, he does mix up where he's going with it on that shot, which is, it's not like you can just say, oh, it's him, so I'm going to cheat to the short side. I'm going to cheat to the long. He just has a way of.
Yeah, but he's got the goaltender moving left to right. So he's got him at a disadvantage, and then it's basically a one-timer. It's like a trip hammer, so it's so damn quick that I don't even think you have a chance to set to know where he's going to go.
Yeah,
but you know where it's coming. Like you're sliding across. It's not like you're in doubt. You're not thinking, well, when he gets it, he's just going to play bumper pool and send it back the other way. That's not happening.
It's coming, but you don't want to slide too far because he's going to go against the grain. You don't want to go too slowly across because he's going to try short side on you. There's things like that which he seems to be able to figure out. I would really be curious if it's like the speed of the pass coming across him or whatever. He seems to have this thing in his head where he knows which side to go to when he's doing that, because the goalie's going across guessing, right?
I don't think he's aiming. I think he's just trying to get the puck off of his. As quickly as possible.
There's a little bit of aiming.
I think there is. I think so, Mike. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of goal scorers through the years, and some of my best interviews about goal scoring have been with Mario Lemieux. Mm-hmm. And I got into him pretty deep, and what he said is when the game changed he said you get about a half second, is what he said, to look up and see where the goalie is.
Okay.
And that's all he needed was a half second. Mm. And he said, all I need to see is a little small area. And that's all I need. I just need to see some net. And he said, what happened when they started to look like the Michelin Man and they got big? He said, you looked up for your half second, but you saw no net.
Right.
So he said there was nowhere to shoot. So that sort of told me that they really do try to pick the corners. And that's some top scorers. You know how frustrated we all are when we watch teams and you say, why can't you hit the net? Well, the reason they can't hit the net, and they always explain that, is they're trying to get just a little piece of the upper corner. And so, when they miss it, it's because they were just off a little bit. It's the same thing.
In practice, they'll hit it 10, 15 times in a row.
But they don't have a guy. They don't have back pressure and front pressure.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it just shows that is the difference.
Well, it's no difference than a baseball pitcher who is trying to paint that corner, but sometimes he's off by 3 inches. I want to bring up something. Jeff Blashill said something really, I thought, fascinating last night, and it's true on every team, and I think everyone will find this interesting. So, you're watching on the power play, and the crowd is always yelling, shoot, shoot, shoot. And not yet, when you're a sports writer, I think there's nothing more frustrating than when you see a guy and he constantly get his shot blocked.
Right.
So
right.
my thought always has been that coaches probably hate that too.
Oh yeah.
They hate when shots get blocked as well. Like, make a move, deke somebody,
Right.
find a little bit of space and then fire it. Nick Lidstrom always got the puck, on the net, or at least in the general vicinity to hit Thomas Holmstrom in the rear end or something, and then,
Right.
Go into the net. Blashill said last night that with his team, like, they're not shooting enough. And he goes, players hate getting their shot blocked. And it's hard to convince them, that we try to do, that we don't mind your shot getting blocked because we create chaos.
Right.
And that's how we're scoring now on the power play. We're scoring through chaos of, the ball pinballing.
Right. So wherever the puck goes, all of a sudden it's on someone's stick.
So he said, but that goes against what the player thinks. They don't want to get their shot blocked.
Right.
And he said, so we try to tell them, and obviously that's not an absolute. He doesn't want you to get your shot blocked all the time. But sometimes a blocked shot, he says, creates a scoring opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
and
I guess I knew that, but I never thought about it in those terms.
it feels like a block shot high out doesn't, you know what I mean? But it feels like that it depends. I think that, the best defensemen on the best point guys on the power play to me are guys that aren't trying to score from there, but just trying to get that they're looking to get it towards chaos, but you have to get past that first guy to do that. So often that means shooting a little bit wide or at least shooting into people that are in front of the net, like that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, the
Devils scored a goal last night that was a result of that. It was a really beautiful goal where I don't know who was at the point, but he took a shot that was obviously, it was a hard slap shot, but it was obviously not on net, but it was in the power play. And it hit a bunch of people and went in,
The thing is, I don't see many players penalty killing being willing to get in front of, say, Ryan Pulak's slap shot.
But they do now. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Mike, I do believe we're at the point now where players need better protection for what they wear under their uniforms, because there are guys that are actually blocking the 4 or 5 hardest shots in the league. They block it and they go right off the ice. But how many of those can you do a game until you can't play anymore? And I kind of really do think that because we're in the shot blocking era, that players do need to be protected a little.
Yeah, like Russ, if you're like a high forward playing out there against those point guys,
yeah,
I mean, you should be like putting on like some kind of catchers, like
shin
guards before you go out in the power play.
Like some of these shots are like 108 miles an hour.
Yeah, you better be wearing those old style thick gloves and the skate guards, because I've seen players blocking shots, breaking a finger or something.
I'm doing the side turn every time. I don't care if I get a piece of it, great, but I'm protecting myself.
Yeah,
that brings up an interesting point. And again, I want to get the panel to discuss this. I don't really have the answer here, but we've seen in the game that things that used to be givens are not. For example, when I was growing up, you never passed the puck in front of the net. But now we see a lot of defensemen will dump a little quick pass to another defenseman in front of the net. I think Nick Lidstrom was the first to do that.
Yeah.
And because I remember talking to Scotty Bowman about it, I thought he had sort of allowed that or thing. He goes, no, Nick just did it on his own, and I'm not going to tell Nick Lidstrom how to play defense. So it was kind of a surprising answer. Another thing that we see now all the time, we used to say you cross center ice on an empty net before you shoot.
Right.
Not anymore.
No.
You get a shot, and the coaches, they're fine with this. I don't know if it's analytics or they've done percentages or
gotta be percentage analytics.
percentage or whatever it is, but they do that.
Well, I'll tell you something, Kev, because I've been watching hockey since I was 5 years old. It still gives me like an electric spark up my spine when I see the defenseman behind the net either feeding it to the other defenseman right in front of his own net or the F1. Because if they miss that pass, it's right in the slot to somebody who's cutting in toward the net. It's insane, but they're doing it more often than
they do it because, and I've actually talked to defensemen about this, that's now considered a high percentage pass, that the likelihood of what you're talking about is remote compared to how often it can help you in order to do that. But anyway, that's not what I really wanted to get at. I'm just giving that as an example how things have changed, and one that I wonder if we need to change. A guy blocks a shot. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Blocks a shot, and he's hurting. Right. He's down. What's he tried to do? He tries to get up, but he's hurting so bad he's immobile. He's standing there. He's trying to do something. He's trying to do anyway. Meanwhile, it's a 5-on-3. Right. Yeah. It's a 5-on-3. I watched the game the other day, and it was the right point guy, the guy that was handling, the left point, the guy handling the left point. So the forward on that side, his bench was 20 feet away.
Right.
Would he not have been better off to crawl to that bench and get that other guy on than what happened? Yeah. Because what happened was it was 5-on-3 for 45 or 50 seconds.
It's the same thing with the broken stick. It's
like stick game killing. Yeah, I agree with you.
Are you better off if it's not the long change? Are you better off if you've broken your stick and or if the defenseman has broken his stick and handed it to the forward has handed it to the forward should go to the bench and get either another forward or get a stick because you're basically it's like 5-on-3.5.
But here's another thing that's changed too.
I don't think you can.
Goalies, when they lose their stick, no longer use player sticks. They used to. Player used to always give them the stick, and now they're like, no,
to be honest with you, I thought that was stupid.
Yeah,
because those goaltenders, most of the time they use their body anyway, and that defenseman without a stick.
Yeah.
But in this butterfly stance, without a stick, you really leave your 5-hole wide.
They don't want the stick. They all wave it off.
Yeah, I was as a goalie. A couple things like you're saying, Kevin, like that have changed like that. And it's funny because I played in we played in the game a couple years ago now in Philly when the Penguins played outside. And that was the last time I've been in goal, and I was playing there. It was a blast. But I grew up in this era where as a goalie, I was supposed to yell screen if I was being screened, and I do that now, and I played open hockey. So before that game, I played a bunch of open hockey to get myself in shape before I went out and embarrassed myself at Lincoln Financial Field.
I watched it too. Anthony and I were on the bench for that.
So before I went out and embarrassed myself at Lincoln Financial Field, I played a whole bunch of open hockey. And when I was playing open hockey, I would be in this situation where I'd be yelling at the screen. They're like, "What are you talking about?" People turn around me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, that's what I was taught to do." And if a good defense was screening you, yelled screen, and they would get out of your way, you let you see the shot. They're like, "No, we block the shots now. The screen doesn't matter."
Yeah.
And it was really embarrassing to me. I'm like, this is something that was so drilled into me at, Can-Am hockey camps, like places like, that I went to. It's just like, it's crazy to think about that, this stuff really, it has changed so much. And for a goalie perspective, I don't know, that was something.
Well, it'll be interesting. I think Mike's thought too about because I agree with that as well. But I like my defenseman to have his stick,
Yeah.
The fact that they sweep that stick on a penalty kill, that's effective. That's why they do it. So if that guy doesn't have that, it's a lot easier to get that shot through.
And more often than not, the transfer of sticks from a forward to a defenseman doesn't really help things, especially when, and I saw this years ago during a Leaf game, during a penalty kill, the defenseman broke his stick, the forward gave him his stick, but the problem was the defenseman was a right-hand shot. The forward was a left-hand shot. Yeah. So when the defenseman got the puck on his stick, it was like shooting a backhand, and he ended up passing it right to somebody on the other team, and they ended up scoring. So you're almost better off just go to the bench.
Here's the other thing too on the change now, and I like it the way it is. I wouldn't want to change it, but I've often thought about it. Because I love watching changes, and it's fascinating to me is that everyone has their own thought of how close you got to be. Players, some will wait a little bit longer, and some will just risk it.
Yes.
And jumping in, and sometimes they're 8 feet, sometimes they're 10 feet, and I thought, why isn't there a box?
Well, I think there should be a box because there's too many teams cheating on that.
Yeah, why isn't there a box over there? That you got to get in the box.
Right.
You look down, and you're not in the box.
There was at one point, right? We had that before. We did have that.
There was at one time, yeah.
But it would be a lot easier on the officials too.
It would.
Plus, they're not only cheating, but they're also the forwards are going in the defensive side of the bench, and they're changes coming out the other side of the bench. So they're gaining like 20 feet there.
Plus, you got to touch the guy before you come on, like tag Tim Weston.
You have to give him your penny, Kevin.
No, I'm joking.
You have to hand a penny over, and the penny has to be like. You guys remember soccer?
Yes.
It was a soccer thing. You walk out with a penny, and you hand the penny to somebody, and they come out with the penny back. That's what you do.
I have no idea what that means, but okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we?
Won't understand.
Let's talk about this Ottawa thing, because at the height of ridiculousness that game was played last night between the Kings and the Senators.
Can I do this for a second, Mike? Because here's the thing. Remembering back to when the pandemic first started, and we all said, if we just were a little bit smart right now, we could save a lot of hell in the end. We could really make, and it was just if we all went to mass right away, and we all just were it just took forever to have that to happen, and by the time people got behind it, it was already a problem. Last night's game felt like a point at which the NHL had a chance to stop a problem from happening before it happened, and they blew it. They absolutely 100% blew it. I mean, that Ottawa plays with 9 guys on protocol, which means that every guy in that locker room has COVID or has been extremely exposed to it. Because it may not have, it may not be testing positive for it yet, and that they play the LA Kings, who don't have any guys in COVID protocol. Well, let's see what happens to them over the next week or two, as this goes through. And now the Kings are going to be playing people in the meantime as well, and that's going to see what that's going to happen. And then today, three more players from the Sens who played last night test positive today for COVID.
Well, no, they're in protocol. They didn't test positive.
Protocol, right?
Or they're in protocol or whatever. I mean, the reality here is just if a team has more than a certain amount of players, you can assume that everybody's been exposed on that team. They're in the locker room together. They're in the buses together.
But Chris Johnston pointed out it wasn't an NHL team. They had 7 players that had any NHL experience. That's it.
And all the players who had symptoms and not asymptomatic either.
I don't know. I don't know whether the defenseman for Ottawa, Artem Zub, was one of the ones that tested that was in the protocol.
I don't know if he got pulled or he got hurt. I'm not sure.
Well, all I know is that Shabbat played 31 minutes last night. Zub played 5. So, but this is the point. And Kev, we brought this up yesterday, and this was before the game, so it's sort of like it wasn't Monday morning quarterbacking. It almost seems like the NHL is going to whatever lengths it possibly can to not postpone one game. And the only thing I can attach that to is when at the beginning of the year when they said, well, if we have to start postponing games, then we're not going to the Olympics. And if they postpone one, does it mean if they postpone one, does that mean they're not going to the Olympics?
No. I don't get that at all. I think you try to correct the problem, and just as you guys spelled out about the potential now for having infected their opponent, and I think you've created a potentially bigger problem than if you would have just canceled the game. Plus, just because you cancel one game, it's not like you're suddenly going to start canceling games left and right.
Right.
I didn't understand that at all. Just take one game. I mean, it's no different.
Right.
Why is it that baseball can deal with rainouts and things all the time? And
we can't get canceled for reasons. I mean, it doesn't have to. It's things get canceled sometimes. It just happens. And there's really good reason to do it. And instead, now you've opened up a huge can of worms.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other can of worms, though, too, X. So if you're Pittsburgh, and I don't know how long their road trip is, but let's say this was like a 1 or 2 game road trip, and Crosby can't play on the road trip, but wanted to be with the team to practice, but now they can't practice. You're going to tell them to stay home because you don't want them to catch COVID.
Right.
And why if you're the Penguins, you got to be. If I'm the Penguins coach, I'm like, listen, we're only 12 hours away from Ottawa by car or whatever.
Right.
I mean, the Kings. Okay, Kings are 3,000 miles away.
They could bust it.
We can figure this out. I'm not letting my Penguins play against them.
But
why would I?
And it's not like that. It's the last time that the Kings are. It's not. It's one thing if it's March and it's the last East Coast road trip for the Kings. I get that. No, they're coming. They're coming east. They're going to be playing the Rangers. Or they're going to be playing the Devils. Yeah. It's not a big thing to go one step out of the way and go to Ottawa to make up a game because Ottawa is completely shorthanded. But I think the NHL has their head up a certain crevice the way they're acting right now, because this could blow up where Ottawa could infect other teams, and then it spreads wide, and that's the last thing that this league needs. So I think they should be more circumspect when it comes to, when a team is losing 8-9 players and you're calling up the entire Belleville Senators roster to play against the Kings. Who the hell wants to go to that game? That was a guarantee.
We have testing. We know that's here to help us help us make these kind of decisions. To me, like, we have something. It's not random. We know that's happening. They know that this team's infected right now. And they do that, and they test for that reason. So, like, to me, it's not testing. Is not just to pull guys out completely. If a bunch of guys are tested, you've got a problem.
No, and that's the thing. Like I said, I don't know if Zub got hurt or he got pulled because they got the test result during the game. Nobody really was able to report on that yesterday. And I think more of that's going to happen. I talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, why wouldn't it? And so, I mean, the NHL really has made a huge mistake here. And it's like, and we won't know for a month whether or not it really is a problem because of the way things work, because the Kings could take 2 weeks for the Kings to get infected. That weeks for them to infect other
teams. Yeah, it won't take 2 weeks, but it'll take 5 days anyway.
Right, and so then let's see, and then we're going to see. We're going to follow the trail of this. It's going to be like, I want to see 1 week from now how many players from the Kings are in COVID, and if they are, then this has to be blamed for it. I mean, it's just like, it's clear as day.
Now, I want to touch on this because Russ and I were talking about this before the show, and I think it's a good discussion point here. So Edmonton wins last night against Boston. Now they're 10-2-0. I still think they're not as good as their record, obviously. John Tortorella on ESPN apparently made some. I saw the snippet of the comments that he made on in between periods, and it was talking about Connor McDavid and his point of view. And Russ, if I get this incorrect, you correct me. But what his point was is, Connor McDavid is, the best player in the game, but for him to have success in the postseason, he's going to have to change at least a little bit how he plays.
He's going to have to play both sides of the puck. That's the cliche he used. And the issue that I have with Torts is, it's not been McDavid's fault. He's more than a point a game in the playoffs as is. B, would you really have said that to Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux? Like, come here, play more like Stu Bickle or Dubinsky once in a while. You're not going to ask Mario to all of a sudden go play deep in the other end of the ice and stop hanging out in the middle so you can get the offensive break just because it's the playoffs. You're not going to do that.
Well, but okay, we're talking about players whose prime were in the 80s and 90s. We know we acknowledge the game has changed. And if you look at two examples, Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. Sidney Crosby, I believe, won his Stanley Cups when he became he was never a bad two-way player, but he was a better two-way player when they won their cups later in his career. In the 2009, he was an unbelievable offensive player. Ovechkin definitely won his cup in 2018 when he was less of a liability in his own end. I think nowadays you have to at least be passable defensively, even if you're a superstar offensive player like Connor McDavid. I think that's been the problem with Austin. Austin Matthews has been better defensively in the last couple of years, and he's played better in the playoffs except for last year.
It's like, here's the one thing. When have we ever talked about Connor McDavid being a liability defensively?
I never have. That's my thing too. And I also think that the reality is, Connor McDavid's offense is probably the best defense the team can have.
Yeah, well, he has the puck. You don't have it.
Exactly. I mean, you're not.
Gretzky's theory. Yeah.
Right. Right. And it makes total sense. I mean, you can blame the people that are, and those teams did get better, Mike, when Crosby and Ovechkin, but that also played with the teams getting better defensively as well.
But I also think, and this is not part of Connor McDavid's game, and maybe the other players on the team are going to have to sort of pick up the slack. But I think what also Tortorella is getting at is Connor McDavid in the playoffs against Anaheim a few years ago and against Winnipeg last year got pushed around. He got pushed around against Chicago. Now, I'm not saying it's up for him to, he has to be Tom Wilson and goon it up, but I think he can be intimidated and he can be affected physically by teams that play against him in the playoffs. And until that is decreased, I think he's going to be limited.
Not showing up on the point sheet, Mike.
Yeah,
he's more than a point a game.
I think Connor McDavid is far more intimidating. You watch him, and I watched him the other night closely. It's amazing how far off the defense now plays him.
Yeah.
You know, so he's so intimidating as an offensive player now. His speed is so great, and to be honest with you, you know, we've all seen him effectively use his speed in a defensive capacity. Right. You know, he takes 2 strides and suddenly he's, you know, knocked the puck away and it's going back the other way. So
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's easy for John to say that because we know that, just as you made the case about Ovechkin, I would say Crosby has always been
I would say that
good defensively. But Ovechkin for sure, like he even talked about how hard it was for him to make the transition. And, you know, he was like during the course of those games that, you know, the broadcaster would talk about, you know, and isolate him about how he was busting back to get in the zone and so forth. So, and Steve Yzerman was a convert as well.
You know what Connor McDavid suffers from? He doesn't have a great roster, and that's not Ken Holland's fault. It's bad cap management. If you had better cap management, there's plenty of teams with better rosters that if you put Connor McDavid on that team, they're not telling him to do anything differently.
Yeah. A couple of things for last night, real quick before we go. Besides the Oilers game, and besides Mangiapiani's great goal in the playoff spot, the Devils win again. Like the Devils have back-to-back nights where they beat the Panthers and they beat the Islanders.
Let's twist that a little bit differently. The Islanders lost, Eck. The Islanders are now under 500 if you consider overtime losses. They're 5-6, and we said they needed to be 500 on this.
The road trip is caught up to them.
Yeah, they need to get home.
Well, they're 5-4-2, so they're technically NHL 500.
I know, but they're not, and they still have to play Florida and Tampa. So good luck with getting over 500 now.
Yeah, but Florida lost to Pittsburgh too.
I know, but they're going to get on track at some point.
Yeah,
Florida, and I want to talk about that one next. But I think the Islanders are going to be this is just a brutal road trip. I mean, beyond it's just like
it's brutal.
It's just out of control. Like this is and I think that it's affecting them. You can see it.
But they overplayed Sorokin too.
They've overplayed Sorokin for sure, 100%. He looked very tired last night to me.
Yeah.
Panthers Penguins. The Penguins 5-3-4. And the reality is like this. I'm going to ask you guys about the loss of Malkin and Crosby has really turn out to be the greatest thing that's ever happened to the team.
No. Okay,
no, and the reason I say that is this because they're going to come back. They'll be back.
Jesus Christ! Okay.
Let me finish my thought.
Okay.
Let me finish my thought. Thanks. Appreciate it. Before I get shot down, some of these guys on the Penguins that we're seeing do things, that are impressive, like Rodriguez and players like, he's impressive right now. Like there are some guys out there who are doing things. Luger, another one. These guys are really.
Well, Bluger's been doing it for a few years now, but Rodriguez has a little more ice time. I get it.
And I think that that team is tough to play against, despite the fact they're missing guys. And to me, that's something that's pretty impressive.
I had to look it up. It was 2011, and that I believe that was the year that Crosby had the concussion in the Winter Classic, and Malkin was hurt for a stretch that year as well, and the Penguins had a lot of success with Tyler Kennedy as their number one center. Okay, you can do it for a stretch, but honestly, when Malkin and Crosby came back, they psychologically relied on those guys. Right now they're playing, I think, above their heads in terms of they're playing better defensively. They're all buying in. This doesn't translate to what they'll be with Crosby and Malkin, or mean that they're going to be so fantastic once Crosby or Malkin comes back. I think it doesn't. It's better that they're doing this without them because they get them a chance to make the playoffs.
Tell me this hurts to get.
I'll tell you where the inconsistency
playing time and get this confidence up. This is NHL is more than any other sport is about confidence.
Yeah,
it is. But I'll tell you what I think the other factor here is. Even last year, while there was some travel, it wasn't travel of an 82-game season. So players haven't done it in a while. And I do think a lot of these weird wins we're seeing from the home teams that may not be as good as the road team. But again, the road team, they're in the early part of the season just trying to figure out an 82-game schedule again, and I don't think they're in 82-game shape yet. I don't.
Yeah, and then you can see that with Florida right now a little bit. Like and then they definitely dominated parts of the game last night. They came out, they were out shooting them 8-0 in the beginning of the game. They dominated in the overtime. They had a goal disallowed that was barely disallowed because of an offsides. I mean, that game could have gone very different for the Panthers last night. It could have ended up in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, the NHL has had the next man up process for as long as I can remember, and they named it next man up about 10 years ago. This has been going on forever. Everybody knows how good, like you're talking about Rodriguez, everyone on the Panthers knows what his skill set is. They also know that he's limited by his ice time, and everybody knows when you get more ice time, you have a greater opportunity to start to do, different things, and it helps you. Yeah, I mean, if you get more playing time, do you get more confidence? Well, the answer to that is yes, but it doesn't. I don't think this makes them a better team.
In the long run, you don't think it makes them a better team?
No, because everybody knows what those guys can do. That this is a professional league. There's nobody on the Penguins that the coaches are saying, "My God, I didn't know he could do that."
No, but I know that. But I'm just saying that the players themselves are growing. I mean, there's a growth that can't be denied.
I think with more
I think with younger players that's true, but not with a guy that's been around a while like Rodriguez or or those guys.
For years.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, this one, and this. So I'm pretty convinced now that the Winnipeg Jets have decided to be the Connor Hellebuck Team USA. They're just pushing hard for Connor Hellebuck to Team USA, because when you watch the Winnipeg Jets, it literally is like watching the American hockey uniforms. Like I go, wow. It's like when the game came on, I saw a highlight this morning, and when I put on the NHL Network, and it was a Winnipeg Jets highlight, and I thought they were showing something about the Olympics. I did. I really did for a second. Like my first minute, they're showing something about the U.S. Olympic team, because this is these jerseys. I mean, I like the Jets logo and everything like that, but of course I like the vintage Jets logo more than I like these jerseys better than their other jerseys. But man, they really are just down to like the fonts and down to the way it's USA hockey right there. It's crazy. I don't know.
I'll tell you what got me about that picture though, Eck. Logan Stanley 6'7", Hellebuck 6'4". Why does Hellebuck look taller?
It's the angle of the picture.
Okay. Yeah, forced perspective, Russ. That's what it'd be. It'd be called forced perspective. It's like when you put your thumb here, you can see I can cover your whole head. All right. Yeah, there you go.
We just have to mention this quickly. We don't have to really go on long about it, but the attorney for Kyle Beach came out. They commissioned an analysis that Beach lost between $60 to $100 million in potential NHL earnings based on his career, and we've heard that the Blackhawks offer was significantly lower than that. So, Ross, did they break off talks? Is that what?
They're looking for a mediator. So yes, right now the negotiations have stopped. And of course, during the press conference, the Blackhawks assured everybody that they would come to a settlement that was fair. Right. But then, of course, as the lawyers went on, nobody could even say what fair was anymore, right? I think the problem with this is if you're the Blackhawks and you hide behind the lawyers in this and you pay the least amount that you're going to pay because that's what your lawyers say is the best thing to do, you're going to come out of this looking really bad. And they should have really pushed for a settlement, even if they were paying more than they thought they should to him.
Right. Did they just give him the $100 million?
Not the 100, but they could give him $60 million and that would solve the deal. But they probably don't want to give him $60 million. They probably want to give him 50. And so this haggling is going to cost them public relations wise, because they're getting dragged through the mud on this. They don't look good.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. No.
I think something that we should do for future shows next week, maybe, since we're getting closer to when each individual country will pick their full rosters for the Olympics, is maybe pick 2 or 3 dark horses for each team. Because I know, like, I heard that one broadcast was saying, well, Troy Terry is a dark horse for Team USA because he's gotten off to a ridiculously great start. But I don't know whether one good start to a year is going to elevate Troy Terry to the U.S. to Team USA for the Olympics. So maybe we go through like maybe Canada on Monday and U.S. on Wednesday and pick out a couple dark horses.
So final thing, I'm going to bring out Crystal Puck, which I've showed you before, because the Crystal Puck is 5-0 right now. Okay, so there you see it says Ekman's Crystal Puck on it.
Yes.
Anyway, when I peer into the Crystal Puck, it's been 5-0 with some really crazy, wacky predictions. Okay, so
no wagering,
right? Please, no wagering. Tonight's prediction is a big victory for Calgary in Toronto. Coming up, and it's not a huge bold prediction because Calgary is, but both are. That is the game of the night.
Here's the funny thing. I was just going to say, Markstrom played last night in Montreal, which means Daniel Vladar is going to start for Calgary. So, your Crystal Puck would have had.
I like it. I like it even more. Let me
finish.
That is crazier than I thought.
Let me finish. Your Crystal Puck would have had a better prediction of picking the Buffalo Sabres tomorrow against the Leafs in Buffalo, because obviously we know Buffalo always beats Toronto, and Jack Campbell's playing tonight, and either Joseph Wall or Michael Hutchinson will start in goal for the Leafs tomorrow night. Plus, I'll be at the game, so that definitely means they'll lose.
Everything you're telling me leans even more so that this Crystal Puck is right. Calgary was winning tonight against the Maple Leafs, and in a big way.
The only reason, listen, I think Vladar is a good goalie, but Calgary has not played well lately. Why in the world are they
haven't? I know, and that's why I believe Sutter's going to have him in line. And I also think that this is the kind of team that the Maple Leafs just play horribly against.
Actually, I disagree. The Maple Leafs are going to play a lot the way like the Sharks did and skate around them. That's what the Leafs were doing to the Flyers, and they're going to do that to the Calgary Flames too.
And what Eck is leaving out is Mangiapane will score 4 goals.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question about that. I agree with that completely, and I want to thank Funky for
saying sorry. So Flamester said Markstrom's playing, but I still think they're going to lose
on back-to-back nights. I doubt it. I doubt it.
No, not every team's afraid to play their goalie back-to-back, Mike. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your hockey, and enjoy your fall. Get out there and do something fall-like. We're doing something fall-like.
Go rake some leaves.
Yeah, rake some leaves. Find yourself an Oktoberfest in November. That's what we did. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.